Hi, I'm Greg Luderman, and I'm going to give you a video tour of one of my books. But before we begin, let me just give you a tour of my office. Why not? This is my office. As you can see, I like to surround myself with furry art. It makes me happy and helps keep me inspired. Unfortunately, I don't have near as much wall space as I do art, so I've been forced to start hanging my treasures a little snugger together than I'd prefer. Over here is my workstation, and here are the furry novels that I've got up on Amazon for sale these days. The Kanti Cycle is a trilogy about Kanti. He's a Giru, an alien species that look a bit like kangaroos. Kanti works in space, but he doesn't have a prestigious job like an admiral or a captain or even an officer. No, Kanti's job is using a bulldozer to load garbage onto a conveyor belt. But his life isn't all bad. He does fall in love. Unfortunately, though, he has a rather large secret, and when his mistake reveals that secret, he ends up running for his life. But there's no way off the White Flower too, so he's not going to be able to escape for long. Today's selection is from Skeleton Crew, the first book in the Kanti Cycle trilogy. Skeleton Crew is not only set in a world created by Rick Griffin of House Pets fame, Rick was kind enough to illustrate it. Skeleton Crew was published in 2017. Chapter 1, 60 Years. Will it hurt? Rennie asked. He had paid the company administrator little notice, but asking the question provided a welcome distraction from the large orange pill in his paw. Not at all, sir. The administrator tilted his head supportively toward Soara, Rennie's mate, but she ignored him. The raucous party quieted to hushed whispers, and soon everyone fell silent. All the guests watched as the Giru rolled the pill back and forth between his light-colored pads. His heart beat so loudly that he wondered if everyone could hear the blood pounding in his large, pointed ears. "Thank you so much, Rennie," Thasha blurted suddenly over the hollowed silence. Rennie turned to face the happy couple. Thasha was a pretty young thing, skinny, curvy, and covered in beautiful russet fur that puffed on her cheeks. She was so excited that she practically vibrated in place. Her much taller mate stood beside her, and she clenched his upper arm to her cheek. Rennie chuckled inwardly at the dazed expression in the younger male's pale gray eyes. His light brown fur stuck up here and there. He looked as if he hadn't slept much in the 3 days since hearing the news. "Grandpa?" Rennie smiled down at his youngest grandson and wondered just how much the cub understood. Rennie tousled the cream-colored fur on his grandson's head, and barring the cub's mug of punch, he washed the pill down. In unison, the guests cheered, "Hooray!" Rennie screwed up his face and shuddered. He turned to his daughter. "How much sugar did you put in this stuff? You're never going to get your cubs to bed tonight." She just laughed and put her paw to her father's cheek. "It's your special day. They can stay up if they like." Rennie took his strand from the holster on his upper arm and entered a few commands on the display screen. Then he tapped it against Thasha's, wirelessly transferring his own birth token from one device to the other. With a fatherly kiss to her forehead, he whispered, "Congratulations." "Thank you, Rennie. Thank you so much," her mate stammered. He extended his paw and touched pads with the party's host. "Good luck," said Rennie, smiling encouragingly as he thought back to the day, so many years ago now, when he and his mate had become a happy couple. Parenthood had been the most exciting and most terrifying adventure the two had shared. "Good journey," everyone cheered. "Good journey," Rennie's grandson echoed a little later than the others. Rennie spread his ears in a genuine Giru smile as he set his strand on the table. He had enjoyed the party. The farewell had been all that he could have asked for. Then he raised his voice so that everyone in the crowded, humble apartment could hear. Soara and I would like to thank you all for coming. Please stay as long as you like and take some leftovers home with you. Oh, and a special thanks to my son for catering the best meal that I think I've ever had. With another grin, he added, I suspect that the captain will be disappointed that he missed it. The crowd barked sharp yarps of Jeru laughter, as if the captain regularly attended the going-away parties of Jeru and Rennie's class. Eyes closed, Rennie drew a deep breath, savoring all the familiar smells of friends, family, and the apartment he had shared with his mate for decades. Then he reached behind his neck and tried to untie the string of glass beads, but the knot wouldn't budge. Rennie chuckled softly. Guess I haven't untied this in maybe 40 years? Don't worry about it, Dad, said his daughter. She took a pair of scissors from the table, and with a snip, she severed the band. Rennie stared at the simple cord as it fell into his paws. 4 round beads, 3 yellow, and the last one purple. Lifting the strand to his muzzle, he gently kissed the purple bead before laying the necklace in the small family shrine displayed on the kitchen table. Soara quickly looped a length of white crepe around his neck so he would not have to be unadorned long. She tied it in a knot and let the ends hang down to the middle of his chest. Rennie's gaze settled for a moment on the necklace his mate wore. 6 purple beads and the yellow one he had given her so long ago. Then Rennie's daughter helped him remove the holster from his arm and the silver bracelet he wore around the base of his long, thick tail. She replaced the 2 with more crepe. You look very handsome, Dad, she assured him. Everyone began singing as Rennie's family and the happy couple walked him through the front door and out into the corridor. 60 years, he reminisced quietly to himself. How quickly it's gone. A year was a meaningless measure in the depths of space. No one aboard had ever set paw on Jerutech, and none would ever return to it. It hardly mattered how long it took the lush green ball to orbit its star, but the Jeru had kept the convention of measuring time in weeks, months, and years. Rennie put his arm around Soara's shoulders, and she buried her muzzle into the side of his neck, wetting his salt and pepper fur with tears. They had no words. Everything had been said. The old Jeru led the party down the corridor. Others, joining in the song, made way for the group. They headed down the deck toward the center of the ship. Rennie's graying paws padded silently past rows of other working-class apartments. Working class was a bit of a misnomer aboard the White Flower, too. Everyone worked, from the moment cubs were old enough to attend school until their allotment of years had run out. Everyone worked. A crew of 10,000 might seem large, but the Generation ship was a city unto itself. All crew members pulled their fair share. No one was allowed to shirk that responsibility. No one was allowed to waste away from old age. The crew wished they could have more time, of course, but everyone understood. Their school teachers drilled it into them from a very young age. The ship was permitted only so many crew years, and the trade-off for longer lives would leave them with a smaller crew. If planetary acquisitions allowed the crew to exceed the ship's limits, it would surely lead to the death of them all. No, the crew had to make the best of their 60 years, and those young couples who wanted to conceive had to wait for an opening, just as Thasha and her mate had waited for Rennie's time to come to an end. Rennie suddenly took a bad step and stumbled, but his mate and son caught him before he could fall. The old Jeru giggled a bit. He realized that the weight of his daily concerns had lifted from his shoulders, and he felt a little lightheaded. "Let me help you, Pop," his son said. He put his father's arm around his shoulders. They sang their way through the busy market. More joined into the song, trilling and chirping their own wordless harmonies to the melody's endless loop. Each individual voice formed a sparkling bead to decorate the necklace of life, death, and rebirth. Many recognized the kindly old Giroux and waved to him as he passed. Good journey, Rennie, good journey. Don't cry, he whispered to his mate. Don't be sad. His paws wouldn't cooperate, but it didn't matter, for now he floated through the air, supported easily on all sides by the 6 Giroux who cared for him most. He stretched back flat and stared into Soara's brown eyes. Loose ends of crepe fluttered behind him. I love you, he whispered. I love you too, she said through the tears. But Rennie's blue eyes stared off at nothing, unfocused. A young male carrying a stack of boxes set his load down in the corridor and rushed to help, taking Thasha's place. Good journey, she whispered before she turned away. And thank you. Rennie had been kind and sweet, well loved by all who met him. Getting to know him these last few days had been a genuine pleasure for both Thasha and her mate. Everyone they spoke with agreed that for her own cub to receive such a soul would surely be a blessing. Rennie had seemed pleased, too. He had spoken non-stop about his fondness for the happy couple and their extended family to all his friends. Once, with a slip that brought a blush to his ears, he had even referred to Thasha as his granddaughter. The procession snaked its way through the market, and other crew members, friends and strangers alike, took a moment from their daily routines to participate. They all joined into the song and helped carry Rennie's body on to its final destination. The corpse traveled on a conveyor belt of paws, some helping to carry him for only a few meters, some much farther, before they too returned to their duties. Rennie's body left the market and then down the long and winding ramp to the very bottom of the ship. Here in the bowels of the White Flower, too, the air was a little too stale, a little too warm, a little too humid. The lights high overhead shone a little more dimly here. The inhabitants looked a little more shabby. But even down here, the Giroux passing were quick to join in the song and take up a share of the burden, and they all wished him good journey. At long last, 6 strangers carried the body to a wide steel door marked with flashing lights and yellow caution lines. 6 strong workers with grime-encrusted fur stood waiting for Rennie to arrive. The song faded out, and the tallest Giroux, Tish, spoke up. Thank you all, the honey-colored female said. We'll take him from here. Carefully, respectfully, the waiting workers took over the burden, swapping places with a Giroux who delivered the body. After a brief pause, Kanti, a young male with shaggy tan fur, punched his access code into the strand on his arm. The 6 waited patiently with their burden as the 4 sections of the gigantic door creaked and groaned, ever so slowly retracting back into the walls, to reveal the immense space and pungent aroma of Recycler Bay 2. Kanti put his pads on the old Giroux's chest for a moment and looked into his unseeing eyes. Farewell, sir. Good journey. Good journey, the other 5 whispered in unison, before setting off once more on the short walk to the recycler.